Welcome back to another episode of the Rare Humans Podcast, where we talk about how to thrive with a complex biology in today's day and age. My name is Jack. We got my co-host Kevin here, and today we have a very special guest named Ali Chernoff. I met Ali at the Canadian Health Food Association's trade show, talking all about health, wellness, and what we put in our bodies and how that gives us better health. Ali was super dialed into, or is super dialed into gut health. I was super intrigued by that. We kept chatting after the show, and well, here we are. She's on our podcast to help me, help Kevin, and help everybody else better understand the gut. I don't know about you guys, but I've taken L-glutamine, digestive enzymes. I have taken crikey, different probiotics. I've gone
Me
through
too.
down such a yeah. So, Ali, so grateful to have you on to kind of shed some light on the gut, what it is, how it works, and how we can take better advantage of it.
Welcome, Ali.
Absolutely. Thank you. Yeah, good to be here because there's so much misinformation and disinformation out there that it is bonkers confusing to the average person.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And as Jack and I are both diabetics, right? A lot of inflammation can come from the gut, from the leaky gut, right? From the high allergen response. So I feel like we're always trying to manage it. It feels like in the US, everybody's trying to manage their gut. So it's good to have you on to shed some light on what you've learned and your expertise in that area.
Yes, I mean, don't get me wrong, Kevin, not only US but Canada. It's a North American problem because as of the last 10 years, we've added more chemicals, more synthetic preservatives, more fillers into our food and our supplements. And that's really what is destroying our gut because it's changing the variable. Whereas in like Europe, Australia, New Zealand, like those type of countries, I mean, they ban over 2,000 chemicals and there's no fillers or preservatives in any of their products. So what's happening is our chemicals are getting into the soil, which gets into our food and it totally destroys it. So even a healthy vegan that eats whole foods is nutrient deprived. Think about that fact. That's scary.
Yeah.
And our gut health is now we know more about gut health than we used to even know. Like I used to work at the allergy nutrition clinic. I feel like I need to phone up all my old patients and be like, I know I helped you, but now I can actually help you. Yeah, I mean, it's actually mind blowing of the new research, even in the last 7 years of what we've discovered. So another fun fact, we have more microbiome in our gut than there are people in the world microscopically.
What is it, like 7 trillion or?
Something of that nature. Like it's mind blowing. You can't even fathom that number. And I suck at math, so I know that's large. And then also, nobody has the same microbiome, just to make it a little more confusing.
Yeah. So when it comes to like what we're putting in our gut, like for me, I have taken probably 20 different name brand probiotics thinking these are going to be great, trial and error. Let's just see which one hits. What would your suggestion be for somebody who's got gut issues to try to dive in? Like where should they be looking to get
Well, that would be a whole other segment on supplements alone. So I think for today's purpose, let's just talk about what is going on in our gut and how the fire kind of starts there.
Sure.
Because that's like a whole other confusion is supplements, and I can definitely go on a whole tangent on that one, especially Canada and the States. But we'll get into that another day for sure. So let's think about our gut, and you've probably heard about let's eat a variety of 30 to 35 different plant-based foods in a week. And the reason why they came up with this is because our microbiome is so weird. Not only what are you eating in a day in terms of like fiber content, but by the end of the week, let's just call it Monday through Sunday for easy purpose, if you did not eat enough variety of plant-based foods, your microbiome literally eats you. And so you end up killing your own good bacteria because you're not getting enough variety. And what I mean by plant-based foods, I mean high fiber whole grains, high fiber fruits and vegetables. And then the meat and alternative food group is super confusing. But things like hemp hearts and chia seeds, even though they're protein, but because they're very high in fiber, that also counts towards a plant-based food. And so what happens is, because our microbiome is really only made out of good bacteria, bad bacteria, viruses, and fungi, over time, there's so many different things that compound and compound and compound and kill the good bacteria. And then all of a sudden, you have more bad bacteria than good bacteria, and it spreads like a forest fire. And the issue is that we're a walking microbiome. So 50% of your functioning brain comes from your gut. And then 75% of your functioning liver comes from your gut. So there's something called MASLD, which is basically the non-alcohol fatty liver, is exponentially on the rise because of if you have poor gut, then you're more prone to get fatty liver. And then we also have a microbiome in our mouth. So now we realize that like acid reflux, GERD, even your taste buds being off is 100% related to poor gut. And then, of course, there's other things like weight gain is associated. And then females are so lucky because we have a microbiome in our vulva. So that affects a whole array of different issues. Also, cardiovascular risks have also come into play recently, where they've realized high cholesterol is on the rise because of your whole body being in fire. And then your skin, your largest organ, is a microbiome. So itchy skin, dry skin, psoriasis, and eczema is 100% related to poor gut health. So those fancy creams aren't going to do anything, because we need to get to the root of the problem. And then, of course, as you guys being diabetes, insulin resistance plays a massive role because of poor gut health. So now we're seeing people like not necessarily diabetic, but like borderline, as they call it. It's because their whole body is in resistance. So like the pancreas, where it's supposed to be, shooting out the insulin, it grabs the sugar, it puts it into the cells. Well, that's not happening. And so what happens is the sugar is just kind of floating around in your bloodstream. And then as a female, if that happens, then it's kind of like if you think about, I locked my front door and now I've unlocked it, and that's where the ovaries get like slammed with the insulin, and that's where PCOS comes out of. And then PCOS goes wild and it sends messages because it's super confused. And with poor gut health, everything's exacerbated and your testosterone goes through the roof. And then it's like you're running a race, but someone's chasing you. So then your cortisol levels go through the roof and it puts you into this wild flight mode. And then it's like you're in a vicious circle, because you go to bed with high cortisol levels, you wake up with high cortisol levels, you're exhausted. And people are like, oh, I slept through the night, I don't understand, I'm exhausted. Yeah, because you never went into a deep or restorative sleep.
Ali, you just explained my life the last 10. Literally, I'm listening to you just going like, oh my gosh, besides PCOS, because I'm not a female, but
Of course.
oh my gosh, like you literally just explained, I mean, for years, all the gut issues I had, you basically just like hit a summary of all of them. That was amazing. And it's so true, right? Chronic inflammation, the cells not absorbing. We're type 1s, right? So our pancreas doesn't work, but that insulin resistance we see with so many family members, right? Where their blood sugars are running high, they're not absorbing the insulin, and it's just like a domino effect.
100%. It's kind of like you take a match and you throw it into a dry forest. What do you think is going to happen? It's going to spread like a weed, you know what I mean? And like that's the problem. And with bacteria, that's the issue. It's not like, a virus where it mutates into a different strain and mutates right out. Bacteria keeps multiplying and multiplying and multiplying. And, because nobody in the world has the same microbiome, they ended up researching all the different things that compound your microbiome. But they're like, how can we solve this? Because if nobody has the same microbiome, what are we going to do? And so what they discovered major groupings of good bacteria. But the problem is that there's subcategories. I'm just going to explain it in food wise, because honestly, these science words, I can't even pronounce them. It's mind blowing, these scientists that come up with these names. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
So let's pretend we have a good bacteria called apple. Okay. But when you think about apples, there's, Macintosh, Granny Smith, there's different types of apples. And so if that category turns over and then you have more bad bacteria than good bacteria in the apples, the problem is it's not like it's one apple. There's multiple strains of bad bacteria. And so it multiplies and multiplies and multiplies. And let's pretend next door you have oranges. So you think about navel orange, mandarin orange, right? And what it shows is why they came up with the 30 to 35 different plant-based foods in a week. So if you're eating an orange once a week, we think, oh, great, we're eating an orange. We're feeding that good bacteria. But if the apples that are next door to the oranges have now completely turned, they're going to win the war, because now they're going to go into the orange category and they're going to kill all of those good bacteria of the orange. And then now you have completely different bad bacteria of subcategories. And so it goes on and on and on. And that's how all of a sudden, over time, where you end up with more bad bacteria than good bacteria in your gut. And that's when it spreads like a forest fire.
Yeah. And something you said right at the beginning was you said bad bacteria eat you. Like they literally eat your body. And so that's just a domino effect of more and more bad bacteria multiply and multiply and multiply. And then they're getting rid of the good bacteria. So it's like mostly bad bacteria is left. The good bacteria isn't there. And am I right in saying that?
Yeah, exactly. Like it literally fires up like Kevin, not to use California, but when was it? 2 years ago when there was like that awful fire. So when you think about that, it's not like all of California was on fire all of a sudden. It started in one city. So if you think about that, our gut is always the initiation of the fire, and then it spread to other cities, unfortunately. So it's like our body, the fire starts in our gut, and then it spreads to the other microbiome in our body. And that's what happens. So when you're very inflamed, things are not functioning properly, because when you think about it, all of our organs are attached. So if we got inflammation in our whole body, everything is going to be resistant. And this is why they keep discovering, with the insulin resistance. And then, when you think about your heart is not pumping properly, so cholesterol is building up, and it just goes on and on and on. And, what I see in my practice is that doctors have no clue what's happening. So they zone in on the problem, the individual problems, like let's say the skin, psoriasis, eczema. So what do? They send them to a dermatologist, and the dermatologist gives them the fancy cream. They put it on over here because this is where the eczema is. And then a week later, it shows up, say, on their face. And they're like, wait a minute. Because again, it's putting a Band-Aid on it. It's not getting to the root of the problem. Now, the good news is your microbiome is 100% reversible. And it does take a year to actually turn over a microbiome. Think about that.
Wow, cool.
Yeah.
So a whole year. Wow. So, Ali, I want to ask you a question because I've dealt with so many things you're talking about, the skin stuff, the hormone stuff. And well, the thing that concerns me is there's so much glyphosate and so much pesticides and so much garbage on our plants now. What do you personally recommend, right? Because if we need different microbiome and we're, different plants and different grains and things like that, do you really push the organic because of that load of glyphosate and toxicity? What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, it's a great question. Yeah. I mean, I tell my clients, listen, at the end of the day, if you're pro organic, I mean, that's your choice. On a nutritional note, Honestly, there's no difference on a nutritional note of like, say, I don't know, I'm just going to make it up, like organic white rice versus non-organic white rice. Like nutrition wise, it's exactly the same.
Yeah.
And the problem with Canada and the States, I should say how our lack of regulations are. If there's a farm, I can't remember what the distance is. There's a farm over there that uses, pesticides and spray and all that. You get the drift. So I don't really look at organic versus non-organic personally. I look at what is the source, like where is it coming from? Like for example, I was out of cauliflower. I'm a big frozen person, like frozen vegetables, because I have a dog and my dog eats all whole foods because
Nice.
dogs actually have worse gut health than humans because of kibble. But
You
that's
should see
another
what
that's
Kevin
another
feeds
story.
Kona.
Sorry.
I said you should see what Kevin feeds Kona, his dog. So
My
ground
dog.
beef, eggs. Dude, this guy lives like a king.
Oh my dog's a princessa over there.
No.
But yeah, she eats all whole foods. But the point is because I'm feeding her as well, and because she eats vegetables like I do, I can't be buying a bunch of fresh vegetables. I don't have the time to think about it. So, I just went to the grocery store, and in Canada and the States, we have to disclose the country of origin of where the vegetables and fruits are coming from. But the good news is they pick them when they're the ripest, they flash freeze it, and then they have to travel frozen. So there's actually no nutritional loss. And my cauliflower is from Belgium. Like, amazing. Because in Europe, they do not use any chemicals in their farms.
Yeah.
So there's no chemicals. And then they have a massive ban on preservatives. Like even something like whole wheat bread, and I'm not saying everybody's doing this, but in general, like it is honestly 90% of Canada and the States. So when you look at whole wheat bread, there are now 30 ingredients on whole wheat bread. Okay, this was never 10 years ago, by the way. And 26 out of the 30 ingredients are preservatives.
Wow.
So on average, if you look at a bread label in Europe, it has 4.
Yeah.
4. So I'm a little bit of a snob when it comes to grocery shopping. My friends know that.
Me
and
too.
That's okay. So, for example, pasta, don't get me wrong. I eat pasta. I'm not celiac. I don't have an autoimmune disease. I eat gluten. Like nothing is going on with me. However, the pasta I buy at the grocery store is grown in Italy, manufactured in Italy, packaged in Italy, and it is white pasta. But it has a truckload of fiber in it and a truckload of protein because that's what normal grains should look like. So when you look at our whole wheat flour pasta, there is very little fiber and there's no protein because they processed the crap out of it.
Yeah,
So
that's
even
semolina.
whole wheat pasta is not healthy in Canada and the States.
And you
So
notice, Ali, you notice when I was listening to a podcast and they were talking about Italy, and they were saying Americans and North Americans, we fly to Italy. My wife's Italian, and we have to order the pasta special because it's so al dente in Europe. They like freak out. But pasta is supposed to be cooked al dente because it's a prebiotic fiber, right? So you have a little more density in the noodle. It's not just like sloppy and you know what I'm saying? So it was funny. They were showing a chart of how the body digests more of an al dente, real semolina flour Italian pasta as opposed to like the hybridized wheat we have in the States. And it really, really overcooked and soggy. And the difference in the glycogen load was fascinating.
Well, it's also because we process the crap out of our flour, and because there's so many chemicals in, like, forget even how you cook it. It's before you even cook it is the problem, and that is what the bigger picture issue is, worrying about how we cook it. So really the problem is at the soil level
Yeah.
You know, in the States, they ban about 11 chemicals, and in Canada, we ban 25. So let's be honest, 11, 25, it's the same. So when you think about that, that is the bigger picture about how we only ban between 11 and 25 chemicals in North America, and Europe bans over 2,000.
So am I reaching and saying a lot of our gut health issues stem from eating foods that are heavily processed?
That is correct. I mean, at the end of
Fair.
the day, there's really only 5 inflammatory foods. So, and this again has changed in the last 10 years. Like, this was not on the radar. So, for example, dairy is actually the number 1 inflammatory food. And this is only in Canada and the States. And it's because, and again, we're not saying all farmers, but 90% of farmers, they change the feed of what the cow eats. So it's so the cow is eating very like processed foods, and that's the problem. They're not grazing naturally in the beautiful grass. So then by the time they milk the cow, the milk already has so many like chemicals and preservatives in it, and then they process the milk. I mean, so you're now drinking processed milk, and that's what really imbalances the microbiome. So that's number 1. Number 2 is alcohol. Alcohol is a direct link. It hits the microbiome. It kills good bacteria. I mean, that's just, it is what it is. It's a foreign substance. And then number 3, coffee and black tea, believe it or not, they produce something called tannins, which then produce acid, and that kills good bacteria. Now,
Smokes.
You just broke
if
my heart, Ali.
Yeah,
okay,
you broke mine too.
I have a couple of solutions. Number 1, if you delay your coffee 90 minutes after your balanced breakfast, not just, ooh, I ate a little fruit, a balanced breakfast, then what happens is that food has started to feed your microbiome. And so when you drink your coffee and it lands on your microbiome, there's a little bit of a net or a sponge, if you will. So there's less impact. The other thing is, look at where you're buying your coffee beans, because you should start to become a snob about your coffee beans, because we in Canada and the States like to process them. Again, not every company, but in general, you bet. And so that itself is producing so much acid, killing the good bacteria. So that's number 3. Number 4 is ultra processed foods, which is not shocking. But the problem is there's so many foods on the ultra processed food list that never existed 10 years ago. And 2 of them, believe it or not, is mayonnaise and ketchup. Those were never ultra processed foods. So be aware, there are a couple options, but you need to read the ingredient list, because if you start reading the ingredient list of mayo and you don't even know what the words are, it's probably a preservative. So put it back.
Yeah. Now, I have a question for you with regards to dairy, because you've got A2 casein, you've got A1 casein, you've got raw milk. Can you speak to A1 versus A2 and then speak to raw milk?
Oh, yeah. Well, first of all, you know, we've grown up, if you've grown up in Canada and the States, like, your microbiome is not gonna appreciate raw milk. Like, that we're domesticated per se like a dog, so it needs to be pasteurized. Like, it's not going to work. It's very different if you grew up in countries where you're used to that, and your microbiome is fine, but the way that we process our dairy, it's very inflammatory. And yes, in Europe they use something called A1C milk, or A1 milk. That's very different, but it's very rare to find out here. That's the problem. Like, you can find it, but it's like finding a pin in a haystack. And so, because all of our dairy is so processed, that's really what's changing the environment of our microbiome.
Ali, I'm curious what your just because we're talking about microbiome and food, what type of diet do you kind of follow? Obviously, whole foods, obviously all that, but I mean, what for people listening, it's super helpful. Like, what do you really focus on with food?
Well, it's more about what are you missing in your diet, right? Like, I personally don't eat chicken or red meat, but like, I can't expect or even think that's realistic. Like if a client's coming to see me and they eat chicken, like I'm not going to be like, I mean, my dog eats chicken. I'm not going to be like, don't eat chicken. It's not really about like eliminating so many things. It's more importantly, what are you missing in your diet that you're not getting enough variety? Because that's the number one thing that I find with my clients is that they're eliminated so many things because of all this misinformation out there. But as I just listed, there's really only 4 inflammatory foods. There's not a laundry list of things. It's like, don't eliminate your almonds, don't eliminate your fruits and vegetables, don't eliminate your grains. Like I've got clients that used to eliminate all their grains. I'm like, why? Because they're like, oh, I saw this on social media or I read this on Google. And I'm like, what? Like, you're missing a whole food group. But it's like, when you eat your grains, what are you eating?
Yeah.
Right? So that's the key. It's like, what are you missing? What are the sources that you're eating?
Yeah, makes sense. Now, what about, Ali, for people that maybe have food allergies that you see that come to see you? Are those just things because the gut microbiome is out of balance and they need to fix that? So don't shy away from it. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, that's a whole other ball game because, my background is actually in allergy nutrition. And so like for example, with babies now, they actually challenge the food allergy so they can outgrow it. So it's a whole other process now how they do that. But if an adult is coming to see me and they have a food allergy, I mean, you usually cannot just reverse a food allergy as an adult. But what I'm actually seeing more, it's not necessarily food allergies all of a sudden are becoming more prevalent as an adult. It's autoimmune diseases, and that is 100% related to the gut environment changing. Like I've had so many new clients in the last like year that are newly diagnosed with like celiac, Graves, Hashimoto, and that is 100% related to poor gut. And especially clients that are not born in North America and they've lived here for like about 5 years. All of a sudden, they have all of these autoimmune diseases because their microbiome has completely changed. It's very disturbing, actually.
Yeah, fair. So you said 4 main inflammatory culprits: dairy, alcohol, coffee, and what's the fourth? Highly processed
Ultra
foods.
processed foods.
Ultra processed foods.
And
Okay.
then the fifth one, it's not that it kills good bacteria, but refined sugar, bad bacteria loves refined sugar. It's a feeding ground. And when I say refined sugar, I don't just mean like brown sugar and white sugar. Maple syrup and honey are refined sugar. So do not fool yourself and think that I'm eating honey and maple syrup and I'm going to be healthy because there's extra nutrients in there. There's not. So what I tell my clients, if you're making a recipe and it calls for, say, like, I don't know, maple syrup or honey or brown sugar, pick the one that you like in terms of flavor profile. But you're not getting any benefits by eating some extra honey or maple syrup. And when I
Yeah.
say that, I'm talking about a lot. Like you're eating a lot of candy or you're eating store-bought cookies or store-bought cake. But if you're, let's say you're making overnight oats and you want to put a little maple syrup in there, that's not going to kill your gut health. Like that's fine. I mean,
Yeah.
I do
Gotcha.
it. Like, but we're
Yeah.
talking a lot is going to end up being a feeding ground for your bad bacteria, and that is a problem.
Understood. Good to know. Kevin, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I think, Ali, you related so much of the gut to hormonal issues with women and PCOS and skin issues and things like that. When women come to see you with these issues, is it a specific diet you're putting them on, or are you just focusing on getting them away from the processed foods, the dairy, the things like that? Like, what's kind of the method when you meet with those clients?
Yeah, and again, I really don't like the word diet. It's really not a diet that I put them on, because at the end of the day, it's like, how do we fit the foods into your lifestyle? We're not going to be changing their schedule. And again, I really focus on what are you missing, because let's be honest, especially my corporate clients that work the same hours Monday through Friday, almost identical Monday through Friday. They're eating exactly the same. And that is a problem in itself, even if it's healthy, because by the end of the week, they didn't get enough variety. Like, there's
Yeah.
no way they hit that 30 to 35 different plant-based foods in a week. And the thing is, when your microbiome is so on fire, in order to kind of like revive it and bring it back, you need between 60 and 65 different plant-based foods in a week.
Wow.
30 to 35 is for maintenance. So it's a
What
whole other ball game.
What are your thoughts on like a greens powder?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely recommend a greens powder, but again, I'm very picky of what you recommend, because
Sure.
a lot of companies, their greens are dead because they're processing it. Like,
Yeah.
especially if it's a powder, if it's processed, by the time you have it, you're not really having any greens. I
Gotcha.
mean, I think we should do a whole segment on supplementation to debunk a whole array of myths, because especially in Canada and the States, it's super confusing. Even like
Yeah.
third-party testing is really confusing out there, because it's not what people actually think that means. The only thing that is true third-party testing, and you can look at any label, is B Corp certified. At the end of the day,
Oh, wow.
that's what you want to look
Okay.
at, because B Corp certification is like top notch. It is gold, because
Okay.
it's a
That's good to know.
global certification, and a company called B Lab goes into the soil level and third party tests. So it is definitely high standard. It's like European standard, but and then some. And
Yeah.
so, like, for example, Silk, I got nothing to do with them, but Silk recently has become a B Corp certified company, which is unbelievable. So that means there's no chemicals in any of their products,
Yeah.
and all of the preservatives that are in their products have to be real. They're not fake. Because, I mean, I'm part of SportsMed BC, and so my athletes get drug tested. So I've got a lot of athletes at the uni level, both in Canada and the States, by the way. And so they're let me tell you, they're not taking any drugs, but they're taking the protein powder, they're taking the supplements. Not my athletes got tested for drugs in terms of like positive results, but I know athletes that have been drug tested and it came out false positive, because of all the protein powder and the supplements that they're taking have so many chemicals, synthetic fillers, preservatives, cross contamination that show up as drugs in their bloodstream. So
Yeah.
that is a problem in itself. So when you think about that as an athlete, and then just the average person is taking that, what do you think it's doing to your gut? It's killing your good bacteria.
Yeah. Holy smokes.
Yeah.
So, in your opinion, is it really just meat and veggies that you should be consuming, and then whole grains?
No, because there's some things that you absolutely need to supplement, even if you've got a perfect diet. That's why I
Okay.
think we should do like a whole, 101 on supplementation and what to look for and what is
Sure.
actually working, because it's like, what is the source? What is the mode of action? And what are we actually trying to achieve? As opposed to, I do not like multivitamins. I don't care how good they are, if they're ethically sourced, blah, 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 because they've got a whole array of everything in there, but nothing specific. So I like to
Yeah.
get really nitty gritty with my clients and see what they're actually missing and how we can supplement and not just replace.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Yeah.
good stuff. Good stuff. I know we're coming up on time, Ali, and I appreciate you doing this first segment with us. I think we should definitely follow up on supplementation and dive a little deeper. But I know we didn't start this. I think we should end this, Ali. I'd love to hear just real quickly, because we didn't start the podcast this way, of what you specifically are doing in your career. You're talking about your clients and everything else, so everybody knows.
Oh, yes. So I work part-time in my own private clinic. So I literally help people from like birth to death. obviously gut health is the core of my clinic, but I also help out females like trying to get pregnant. Like obviously the male's important because that's a whole other gut health talk in itself about baby's microbiome and all that and pre-pregnancy. And the male plays an important role, just so you know, before you're pregnant. And then I also part of Sports Med BC, so obviously I do a lot of sports nutrition counseling and cardiovascular risk. And then I work also part-time in a global women's clinic, so I deal with everything from pre-pregnancy, during the pregnancy, postpartum, perimenopause, menopause, and overall women's health.
Yeah,
Good
you have
stuff.
a lot of insight in this. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, this Jack, I think we can all agree this podcast has been super interesting.
Yeah.
I think it's super helpful for a lot of people. So just wanted to thank you, Ali, as we come up on our time here. I'm excited for the next time with you where we dive deeper into some of these hyper specific areas.
100%. Yeah, we definitely need to talk about how to get a healthy pregnancy and how to stay pregnant, because the number one reason why females have a miscarriage is because of poor gut health, sadly.
I feel like there's so many miscarriages nowadays too. A lot of them aren't talked about. I'm privileged. Well, it's not a privilege. In fact, it's that I know a lot of women who have had miscarriages and they don't tell the world about it because, gosh, it's so shameful. But no, it's a huge thing. Yeah. Ali, one last thing that I want you to leave us with, like, if you could just, and I know that there's a million and you can't really do it justice with one, but like, what's one thing that we can all take away from, like, give us all one action item to do.
So one action item to do, I would say do a 7-day food record from Monday to Sunday and really see like how many plant-based foods am I actually eating in a week. And let's just use quickly apple as an example. So if you eat an apple every day, fantastic, go right ahead. But that does not count as 7 apples. Even if you have 7 different varieties, it would count as 1. So you would circle 1 apple and that would count as 1 variety for the week. So I would say that would be the best action, is to start there, because then it will give you big picture of how many high fiber plant-based foods I'm actually eating in a week. And just so you know, if you're not vegan, you don't need to be vegan to fix your microbiome. There's nothing wrong with having, the eggs, the fish, the chicken, and the red meat. I don't want people to be scared and think like, oh my God, I got to be vegan. No. It's just more about what are you missing in your diet that you're not feeding your microbiome.
Cool.
Yeah. Great stuff.
Rock and roll.
Let's end it here, Ali. Thank you so much for your time today. Look forward to having you on again. And Jack, anything else? No, that's it. I hope everyone has a wonderful day. Ali, I can't thank you enough. We'll talk to you soon. No problem. My pleasure. All right. Cheers, guys. Bye.